Morning, YouTubers. John Gilkison, AeroStealth here. And this morning I wanted to report on our trip to Montana from southern New Mexico in our Ioniq 5, which we just purchased new in March. So this has been our first real road trip in the car. And I think it was very interesting results. The driving conditions were quite varied, and it was a total of 22,752.5 miles for the trip over a 9-day period, 8 nights, 9 days. So on first place, so let me explain this much. My oldest brother is in an assisted care facility up in Billings, Montana, and no one really knows how he's been doing. A bit isolated up there. We have some letters from him occasionally, but a little worried about him, and wanted to get up there and see how he's doing and take some pictures, be able to send pictures and inform the rest of the family on how he was doing. And since it's a 1,200-mile trip up there, we wanted to include some other activities on the trip to justify going that long distance. So, for example, before we got into Billings, we stopped at the Little Bighorn, the Custer Battlefield Monument. And then after we left Billings, Montana, we went over to Yellowstone National Park, went into the park and seen Old Faithful. And then we drove down to Vernal, Utah, and the next morning there we took in the Dinosaur National Monument. And then we came home. So the first leg of the trip was up the interstate through Denver, up into Wyoming, and up to Billings. The second leg of the trip was on the western side of Colorado and Wyoming. And that posed some challenges that the first leg of the trip did not, because the charging infrastructure on the western side of both of these states, including New Mexico, is a little bit more sparse. So let me show you I got a map hanging up back here. We just bought a whole map of the United States the other day, and see if I can get around here. I don't know how well this will show up on camera, but let's see here. My biggest problem is me. If I hold my pen up here, right here, you can see here we are in southern New Mexico. So you just take I-25 up north through Albuquerque and up through Santa Fe, and our first night's stay was at Trinidad, New Mexico, or excuse me, Colorado, just across the border. And then the next day we went up through Denver, and right here's Denver, and up through Cheyenne and over to Casper, Wyoming. It's about in the middle of the state. Spent the night there, and then the next day we drove on in to Billings, which was the shortest day's travel. So as you can see, this is all interstate. I'll get back to this map on the way back. By the way, when I had to break all this down for the Echo Motor Garage, it wouldn't take the whole trip at once. Just spit it out gobbledygook to me. So I broke it down day by day, which is a bit educational. So our first charging stop was Albuquerque, New Mexico, which was 206 miles away. Now, we have what we call the El Paso Albuquerque Gap in southern New Mexico. At least for CCS cars, there's not any real good charging between El Paso and Albuquerque. They recently put in a station in Socorro, which we stopped to take a look at. I didn't need to use it, but I wanted to locate it. I wanted to find out where it was, take a picture. And I had a little bit of trouble finding it. The first place was on the downtown plaza there, and I didn't know Socorro had a plaza. So I had to find it first. And then there was a repair truck for the chargers there, the charge point chargers. And it was parked in front of them. And so we went around the plaza twice and didn't spot the damn thing. And finally we were getting ready to leave out one side, and then we seen it from a different angle. So I talked to the guys, and I told them I didn't need to charge, it was okay. But they said they'd have it fixed in 30 minutes, so we charged in Albuquerque. It wasn't any problem there. And then we did run into problems in Santa Fe, which is just 54 miles later. We obviously didn't need to charge there, but it was on our agenda, so we did. And the reason I charged there is because the next charger after that is Wagon Mound, and before you get to Trinidad. And I've never been to that charger before. I didn't know whether it worked or anything else, so I wanted to charge up in Santa Fe. But there, the charger wouldn't work. It's Electrify America, and I had to call a service center, and they got it going, but this is not uncommon in Electrify America, charging. However, and here's another criteria for the trip. When we bought the car, we got 1,000 kilowatt hours of free charging for our car. And so we wanted to utilize all the Electrify America charging stations we could on the trip, because essentially that made our energy costs for the trip free to us. Now there was one caveat to that. If you charged over 30 minutes in any one session, they started charging you after 30 minutes. So, and we did do that a few times. The reason is we didn't want to just unplug and move and then try to start a new session and all this, because that's time, that wastes time. And so we didn't mind paying a little bit, and we did. But this caused problems later for another reason, which is entirely counterintuitive. But so we got to Trinidad, and our motel was only a few thousand feet away from the charger there, so in the morning we charged up and went to 90%, went to Pueblo, charged up there to 80%, went to Castle, just south of Denver, charged up there to 90%. Then we went to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and we charged up there to 100%. And the reason for that is the distance between Cheyenne and these are all Electrify America chargers, by the way. But the reason for that is that the distance between Cheyenne, Wyoming, and Casper is great. There's no charging infrastructure out there, so I want to make sure I got it to 100%. And not only that, it turned out that it's just wide open interstate with hardly any traffic on it. Speed limit's 80 miles per hour. Conditions were good. We did 80 miles per hour all the way pretty much from Cheyenne to Casper. And we got good returns. We did about 91 miles per gallon equivalent. And that brings up another efficiency anomaly that occurred starting at Castle, just south of Denver, and all the way through Denver to the north. When the traffic finally breaks free, I mean, basically it's a traffic jam for about 100 miles. You are not doing interstate speeds. you were doing 35, 40, 45 at best. Sometimes you're even stopped. And creep and go traffic. And this is counterintuitive also. But we ended up getting MPG returns of around 200 miles per gallon. And the reason for that is number one, the slow speeds, 35 to 45 mile per hour averages, with the regen braking thrown in. And then you get into something called the corridor effect. If you have 3-4 lanes of traffic, all of this is around you, big trucks and the like, and everyone's moving forward at 35 to 45 miles per hour, they start to get the air to moving too, because there's just so many vehicles and you're completely surrounded by them. It's like drafting behind a single truck, only imagine you're drafting because you're completely surrounded by vehicles, period. And everybody's moving the same direction, and so the air just begins to move. So there's practically no aerodynamic drag at those speeds. You're only left with rolling resistance, essentially. So that's an amazing phenomenon also, which is hard to explain to people. So we got to Billings, Montana, and our last charge was at Sheridan, I always want to call it Sherman, Sheridan, Wyoming, before we crossed the border into Montana. And it was the first charger we had used. It was not an Electrify America charger. It was a charge point at a Jeep dealership. And we had no problems there, and went on into Billings. Now, we spent 3 days in Billings. We arrived on a Friday night. We had a house rented for the 3 days, so we could leave on Monday. And that meant we could cook our meals and save a little bit of money, and it was a base of operations for us, and we went back and forth. We visited my brother on 2 different occasions on Saturday, 2 different occasions on Sunday, for about 2 hours each time. Spent about 8 hours with him while we were there, and it was a great experience. Got to know Billings, Montana a little bit, and then we had to head out. So on May 20th, it's a Monday, we went to Bozeman, Montana, and I charged to 100% there because I knew that I had to make it to Jackson, Wyoming. And what have I got here? It was just 227 miles, but the terrain was another matter entirely. We're going up and down mountain roads, first at higher speeds, and then we got into the park itself proper where the speeds were lower. However, we ran into 2 different snowstorms on May 20th, which we were totally amazed by and taken back. And we did get to see Old Faithful, but got to see it erupt during a snowstorm. It wasn't quite as spectacular, I think, in some senses of the word, as it would have been if you were just seeing it with a clear sky. That was a really long day. We didn't get into Jackson, Wyoming, to our motel room until about 9 o'clock at night. And we did well. So the next day was a short day for us, which is a good thing. Got to rest up a little bit. We went to Vernal, Utah, which is where we stayed in the motel, because right near there is the Dinosaur National Monument. And the next morning we went to visit it, which was spectacular to see. Here's some pictures here. Well, this is all fresh in your minds. Here's the house right here that we rented. It's going to be on your left. And down below, it's just a picture of a tree. And with snow on it and stuff, that's what we were seeing. And this is some images from the Dinosaur National Monument. They have a whole cliffside that's inside of a building there. It has all these fossil bones embedded in it, which of course, once fossil bones become exposed to the air and rain and the elements and stuff, they are destroyed. But here they've preserved them, and they're inside of a building in an environmental control system, so apparently that works. See if we can find anything else on this thing while I got it here. Last two pictures. Oh, this is one that I was really tickled by. Right down here at the bottom. It's the most complete skeleton of a Stegosaurus they've ever found for a baby. And we're just talking, they've put a bunch of plexiglass in here to model what the creature would look like, where the bones went. And we are all accustomed to thinking about dinosaurs as really big creatures, but here you have this little baby Stegosaurus roaming around. And you can just imagine it. It's 3 or 4 feet long. That would be a cute scene out of Jurassic Park, I suppose. So from there, from Bernal, we had a pretty rough time. We ran into road construction. We were on mountain roads with lots of switchbacks, really poor road surfaces, and slow going. But we finally got to Grand Junction, which is in Colorado, for our first EA charger that we had seen since Bozeman. And so I wanted to charge to 100% there, and I ran into problems right away. It turned out that because of me going over the 30-minute limit on these other sessions, that I had depleted my regular account. It had an $8 negative balance, and my bank wasn't letting me replenish the account, so they wouldn't let me charge. And we literally, because we're out, 1,000 miles from home, I didn't have time to call my bank and sort all this out over the phone, spend a half hour talking to my bank about it. So we switched cards and used a different card to renew our account. However, the computer system at Electrify America apparently doesn't deal well with changes like this, at least right away. And so from then on out, we ran into it again. Had to keep calling them to make a charge because it wouldn't initiate the charging after it checked the account. And we were doing what we were supposed to be doing, but Electrify America wasn't. Anyway, we got charged up at Grand Junction, and we were going to go to Farmington, New Mexico to spend the night, and we had to reach Durango, which is just across the border from New Mexico and Colorado. We had to reach Durango and charge there, which we did, and it was literally the sun had set and it was getting dark while we were charging. But we got that done. We didn't have that far to go to get to Farmington, so we went down the mountain into Farmington and didn't get to our motel room until practically 10 o'clock at night. And it was really a long day. It was quite an ordeal. We had a moose try to cross the road after Durango in front of our cars, getting pretty dark. And it was a female, but it was still, that's a big animal. And she crossed the road in front of us. Fortunately, we were a few seconds late on that. So there wasn't any problem with it impacting her. But it was interesting to see her trying to keep her footing on the slanted road surface on the other side when the animal was trying to exit the highway. We've seen all kinds of, we've seen bison, elk, deer, quite a few animals. And the trip into Durango was really something. I mean, Silverton, Durango, that whole area, we were in mountain passes with switchbacks where you couldn't even do 15 miles an hour around the curves. At 11,000 feet, no guardrails, you're looking over just chasms. My wife was freaking out, and I was having trouble myself. but fortunately, her side of the car was near the chasm more than me, so. Anyway, we did all right. The car is just amazing. And it's a charging monster on almost any charger. So it just takes a charge quickly. I highly recommend the Ioniq 5 just because of its ability to charge. I found out a curious thing about it. Even on a 50 kilowatt charger, we were only pulling 48 kilowatts. But when you get to, they always tell you, don't charge beyond 80%, you're wasting your time. You know, because the charging slows way down. Well, at 50 kilowatts, it doesn't, at least on the Ioniq 5. It goes all the way to 90%, and you're still charging at 48 kilowatts. If you're on that to begin with, go ahead and charge to 90%. You're not losing any time. Now, after 90%, it begins to taper down. It'll taper down to like 19 kilowatts, but it's just amazing what that car can do. Now, on a 350 kilowatt charger, which is really fast, beyond 80%, it will begin to taper down. But, you know, tapering down, it's just relative, you know, tapering down from 125 kilowatts to 50 kilowatts seems like a big taper down, but that's still a lot of power you're taking quickly, especially compared to charging in your garage. None of us sit in our car, in our garage while we're charging it, at least not for very long. So the next day we had to go from Farmington to Albuquerque, and again we ran into this Electrify America charging problem because of this account problem. I had to get onto the phone, file a report, explain the problem to them again, and even after I got back the next day I went to Deming and I ran into the same problem again. And boy, I was pissed at Electrify America because they're just not resolving some of these issues like this. And you know, I understand it a little bit because it was a holiday weekend. I mean, over this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, yesterday was my 74th birthday, and a Monday, Memorial Day. As I like to tell everyone, they created a national holiday to honor my birthday. They're just not telling anyone about it, and they only do it once every several years, so no one will catch on to what they're doing. But anyway, really don't need to worry about it much now. I'm not going to be using any DC fast charging for a while, so I think we'll get this straightened out with my bank and switch the card back to our debit card for loading our account again. And we'll see how it goes. Well, that's all I have for you. We went, as I said, we went 2,752.5 miles. Total usage was 873 kilowatt hours. It ended up costing us $72 because of the overages over 30 minutes and using some other chargers. The total we didn't get charged was $284, and it would have been, if we'd have paid for everything, it would have cost us $356 to charge the car. And I think the car averaged, I don't have it on in front of me right now, but it looks like the car was getting about 107 miles per gallon for an average for the whole trip, which is incredibly good, I think. So there you have it. The Ioniq 5 2024 that we own is just an amazing car to travel in. And it's a charging monster, and it also has long legs. You can easily go well over a couple hundred miles between charges if you need to. And if you need to charge to 100% occasionally to make that happen, just do it, because then you don't have to stop again. So you're breaking some of the rules that, if, in a sense, I mean, there are no real rules, but a better route planner will recommend you do one thing, and because of this criteria, I wanted to charge at Electrify America as much as I could, and charge to 100% when I needed to cover long distances, and skip charging for short periods of times in places where I wasn't using Electrify America. I broke some of those rules, but that's what it's there for. You got to tailor this whole thing to your own experience. There's no hard and fast rules, and maybe I could have done it better. I don't know. I doubt it though. Anyway, happy trails, everyone. Safe traveling. Bye-bye.